Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to In Your Skin, my podcast that encompasses racial struggles with various guests from our community, providing their educating perspective. Here on episode 2, I have the lovely Bam. Bam, please introduce yourself.
I am Bam528 or Bam the Lamb.
Bam the Lamb. You are quite a pillar in our community, and I'm so excited to have you here today. To start off, would you be able to share a little bit about your story, where you came from, how you got to Collingwood? 528.
Yeah, absolutely. 528, we might as well just start it right there. 528 is a frequency. 528 is balance, love, harmony, peace, and all things that are good. And I became 528. I started out as Bam the Lamb, which means the impact of the lamb, just to segue into, I'm a percussionist. Been a percussionist since the days of the Funk Brothers. Started playing when I was 10 years old. Never stopped. I literally came to this area when I was a little boy, about 11 years old. And the whole Georgian Bay, everything about it, the exploration of it was just amazing. And as an adult, I couldn't get it out of my mind. Just couldn't get it out of my mind. My spirit just knew I had to, there was something that I had to do here. Didn't know what it was, but literally since I've been in the world and have traveled the world and have had such a wonderful life, the fact that I was led here, I knew it had to be something big.
For sure. You have a purpose here, Bam. You really do. An amazing purpose that has definitely had an influence on the community thus far, particularly in the past year that I've known you. Like I said, you're just quite a pillar. And with that being said, and your story, I really wanted to talk about generational racism because I've experienced racism in the now and the past decade that I've lived, and you've experienced it many decades back, and I'd love to get your wiser opinion on the contrast, the comparison, what's changed, what progress we've made.
Absolutely.
So would you be able to share your wise opinion?
You know what, I tell you, I'm so glad you asked that question, because when I got involved in the civil rights movement in the United States, I got involved accidentally, but now I know purposely. My mom had moved us from Sarnia to Detroit, and in the high school that I had went to, we had a field trip. Field trip happened to be to our congressional office, and my congressman at the time was John Conyers Jr., the Honorable John Conyers Jr. And on the field trip, I was so fascinated with American politics as compared to Canadian politics, and certainly how it operated. But long story short, at the end of the field trip, he said that he was hiring interns, volunteering interns, and if anybody had any interest on taking their field trip any further and really learning about politics, raise your hand, and he'd love to have them. Nobody raised their hand except me. And I would catch the bus after school and go down and do whatever he asked me to do. At the time, it was at the height of the civil rights movement. And it was a very interesting time in Detroit. The transition was on, and even though I was a little boy, I knew something big was happening. It was after Dr. King's death, and it was on the birth of having his birthday nationalized. And I thought at 14, if I could do something about that systemic racial problem that existed, then my children and my children's children would never have to deal with it. So that was my effort. And for the longest time, I thought we were really headed in the right direction. It was when the first George Bush took office, and I remember being in a recording session, and he had won that election, and I remember looking at my brother going, I think it's time for me to go back home. And he said, why? I said, I don't think the United States is heading in the right direction. I said, this guy, I don't think he's got the best interest for all people. And it's a good thing I did, because after he did it, his son came in, and well, here we are, right?
Here we are, yeah.
And so I have a grandson now. And
how old is he? Sorry, just to interrupt.
My grandson is 19.
Okay.
and he is about to be 20, maybe 20. He lives in the States and fits all the profiles of somebody that the police would probably pull over and harass. Mm-hmm. So my concern all the time, every single day, is for his safety. The fact that that energy resurfaced was no accident. It was generated by people who basically was looking for a leader, and their leader came and they started again, which I was so not surprised, but I was surprised that there wasn't any more outcry that it was so wrong.
There was no call to action anymore. Yeah. It's just we fell right back in that cycle, and we have been for centuries.
Well, I mean, if you remember what, like, I got, it was so horrible on Facebook, the feeds, not that you would request, but the feeds that they would send through. At one point, Anisha, every single day, there was a black woman, child, or man that was being murdered. And I didn't want to watch it anymore. I didn't want to see it anymore. Because every time it happened, they would always go, it was all, which is interesting, it was always the victim's fault. But the victim couldn't talk because they were gone.
They have no voice either. And a lot of the time, I feel like they lack the support of people behind them to voice for Absolutely. Them after they're gone. Absolutely. Which is why we need to work to build these communities for those who we've lost thus far Absolutely. And to prevent future losses.
Absolutely. You know what? And this, it starts certainly with voices like yours and the awareness that our town has had and the steps that it literally is taking to do something about it. That's what really makes me hopeful, and in a situation that seems hopeless. When we did that march, it was the second one that happened, and just to make it clear, I wasn't a BLM supporter of the corporation BLM, and just breaking it down and keeping it real. When Black Lives Matter first came up, I thought, Black lives do matter, and the fact that we have to just settle for just mattering, if that's what it takes for us not to be killed, then let us matter. Mm-hmm. That's really how I looked at it. But then what happened was, I got a call from some organizers, a bunch of women that had organized a march after the high school had organized a march here in Collingwood and Thornbury, and they said, "Ma'am, we want you to come out. We want to show our support for you." And when I rolled up in Thornbury, there had to be at least 1,500 people lining both sides of the street. That's amazing. And Anisha, honest to goodness, I just cried and walked up and down both sides of the street, and I think every last one of the people that were there, because they were all white.
It's very emotional to see a crowd that large at a rally, particularly because there is so much depth in the Black Lives Matter movement that isn't caught by first glance. There's so much history. There's so much emotion. It's not just a trend. A lot of people hop on the bandwagon. They post a few things. I'm not racist. I support the movement. I'm done with it. No, it's not that. No. And so I think your emotions are completely valid. It was just a realization to see all these people around you. It was beautiful, I'm sure.
And then in Collingwood happened. Mm-hmm. There were over 2,500 people.
I wasn't even expecting that many people. I was mind-blown.
I really didn't see and feel the impact of it until Queen M showed me the videotape afterward, because when we were walking down the middle of the street and I looked back, all I could see is a sea of people. Mm-hmm. And going into the park, all I could see is a sea of people. But I was in the moment. It wasn't until she showed me the video that I had feelings and memories and a whole lot of emotion of back in the day when I marched for that cause the first time.
Would BAM, going back 20 years, with that being said, going back to 2001, would BAM have predicted this outcome now?
Yes.
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 And 20 years from now, whatever that'll be, 2041, I think, if that's quick math, what do you predict for then?
Here's what I predict. I'm going out on a limb here. This is going to be good. This is going to be good. This is going to be good. In my opinion, the only thing that I think from now that is going to honestly bring humanity back to itself is having a threat greater than humanity threatened them. And artificial intelligence is one of those things that's happening. The automation of our world is happening right before our eyes, and people are watching it and not really knowing what to do. But when you walk into a supermarket and it doesn't have a teller, and just because you can get through there faster. See, I'm old enough to not have those theories that they call be theories. I've actually lived some history now and seen with my own eyes.
You have the experience. You have the lived experience. Yeah. And I almost agree with you. In 20 years, I almost see technology being an issue, especially in the combat of racism. Yes, technology and social media has helped spread education on an international level, but then you're also looking at oppression algorithms where if you search up 3 black teens, you're going to see them all get arrested. But when you search up 3 white teens, it's all of them sitting in their privileged home in their basement or something like that. It's very different, and we don't look at these subliminal algorithms, but they're there.
Let me ask you this, because you guys are going to be affected by so much of it, and I'm really concerned at how you guys are even addressing it, because at this particular point, with everything happening and everyone being traced, and again, there's a lot of things that literally are going to happen because of technology being able to have access to you. And you can see in China how that's working, the social credit system, and certainly hopefully everybody does something wrong, because if you mess up, then you don't get certain things, and that's what they're doing. But we're a democracy. We're Canada. And this great country, in my opinion, stays great because of the people. The diversity, without a doubt.
But I'm proud to say that we have.
It is in my opinion, it is the defining thing of humanity is our diversity and our culture. I'll give you an example. When I started out at Blue Mountain, now 14 years ago.
14 years.
Playing Patty Kendall, love Blue Mountain, Victoria, everybody at Blue Mountain Village Association. And again, my kindness and my passion for this whole area, and certainly, but because of what they've done for my life and because they got it. When they saw the cultural change, they didn't stay stagnant, continuing to do the same thing that they've done. When she brought me in and said, I want you to do your drum workshops right in the middle of the village so that everybody can participate. When we started that, they thought it might have been a one-off. Well, her naysayers thought it might have been a one-off. 14 years later, it was, before this thing happened, one of the most locked down events at Blue Mountain, and planned events that people would come up to do would be drumming. And now that our town is completely changed to doing that, it is even more imperative because it brings people together. And when I've seen all the different, and this is interesting too, because at Blue Mountain, the culture is from all over the world. No one's fighting.
It's just unity. Complete and utter unity. Inclusiveness. I would 100% agree with you.
They're eating, they're hand-holding, they're loving, they're talking, they're laughing, they're playing, they're being together, they participate in activity.
It's a utopia.
I think everybody should just come and stay up here for a weekend, even though we got no more room. We'll show them how to love on each other.
We will.
The racism that It's interesting the difference between racism in Canada and racism in the United States, and having been on both sides. It's the racism that exists in the States comes in a variety of fashions. It comes by things they don't say. It comes by the laws that have been made. Like, for instance, they have a 3-strike rule in California.
Please elaborate on that. I don't know.
Yeah, a 3-strike rule is if you commit 3 felonies in your life, over the period of your life, you end up spending life in prison.
Okay.
A felony could be a jaywalking ticket because it's a traffic violation, so that could be a felony.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you shoplift, that could be a felony. But if you get three felonies for
Life sentence.
or get caught back in the day with contraband, that was a felony.
Okay.
You go to jail for life. That's it.
Which seems almost unfair because half the people ending up in the prison systems, unrightfully so, are Black individuals.
Oh, interesting about that part.
Yes,
Again, the private prison system in the United States, again, systemically, it's like everything else. And again, having lived long enough, and just it is what it is. When the private prison system took over, because it is a business, it is a corporation. Got to have people. So the states basically struck deals where those prisons exist and said that they would guarantee so many people per year into that complex.
So they fill them up.
Fill them up.
Whether it's right.
Fill them
or
up.
Not, or ethical even.
Well, again, if you can't afford a lawyer, which most minorities and melanated people can't afford a $500,000, $600,000 an hour lawyer, they're going to jail. Mm-hmm. If you can't pay restitution, you're going to jail.
A lot of the times, the reason why they can't afford that in the first place is because of the systemic oppression that they have experienced. It's a complete cycle, and everything just interconnects, it's heartbreaking.
Well, again, it's interesting. There was a thing that it always comes back to how Black people should just pull up their strings in their boots, pull up the strings in their boots, and just get busy and make it happen. And every single time that's happened, Black Wall Street, in New York, in Central Park, that used to be a historical Black village that they burnt down. Every time that happens, where that independence is done, it seems to incite something that says, no, we don't want that. So it's not like they can't do it. It's not like we can't do it. Every time it's been done, it's been discouraged. There was laws here in Canada, and you're talking about, again, the back and forth. There was laws here in Canada, just in the Bay, just in Meaford,
For
where
sure.
Black people couldn't be out past 7:30 at night.
Exactly, and it happens here in Canada, and I wanted to touch base on this because I've heard individuals say, oh, it's just a U.S. problem, or the majority of it is in the U.S., and maybe it's more of a violent extent in the U.S., but racism still is carried out here, and because you've lived the experience, because you've been there and you've been here, I really want to know what you have to say about that, so please continue.
We have a whole industry. It's interesting. We have a whole industry in our apple industry and tobacco industry that's still labor supplied by people that come from either Mexico or Jamaica. Mm-hmm. It's been that way since that industry. They come, they do all that work. Mm-hmm. If they didn't, I always tell people, don't disrespect those pickers. When I see people disrespecting those laborers that come here, I literally tell them, please don't disrespect those people who left their family to come and do a job that you won't even apply for.
Exactly. You have no right.
Why are you mad at them? Because they come to work?
Mm-hmm. They're not doing anything wrong. They're picking the apples we eat.
The application goes in every season for hiring, and they can't get enough local people to supply that industry, which is why they continue to do what they do. Mm-hmm. So I literally have always, when I came, because I've been here since I was a little boy, I've always had this relationship and gravitated toward when that season was on to try and, run into them so that I could talk to them, and let them know, that I respected everything that they did. And because of me being a musician and having Jamaican ties and roots to artists and that relationship, I always tell Canadians, would you leave your family? Would you leave your culture? Leave everything you know and go away and work for 6 months for minimum wage and be satisfied with that?
And I bet you their answer is no.
Canadians, they're not, and American, they don't want to, they ain't doing it either. They ain't do. So again, the racism and how it comes across is different. Case in point, I've always been, I call it an only. When you live in Canada, it's certainly outside of Toronto, in small towns, it's very easy to be the only one. Mm-hmm. I never really
experience, yes.
never really think about it because this is where I live and
it's your home.
It's my home.
Your home's your home.
And I'm loving it, and it's just been that way. And it so the sea, I've had people not serve me. I've had to have friends order things for me in the same restaurant or even at a gas bar that had this is not like 20 years ago. This is like 5 years ago.
That's ridiculous. Because if we're going back to when you were a kid, it feels like we've made all this progress, but then you come here and you're experiencing the same situation.
Well, it's because it's systemically passed on from generation to generation. See, it starts off with if people are raised and they don't talk about it outside the house, mm-hmm. but if they're raised to understand that a certain group of people are worthless or have absolutely no worth. I mean, it starts off with the fact in the United States that they categorize black people as only 2/3 human. Mm-hmm. Like, it started off with that kind of nonsense. And that or a third or whatever they try to divide human beings up with, which is ludicrous. But it was at that level of it. We didn't matter, and if something doesn't matter, then you don't respect it.
Exactly.
And it was all that. And again, it doesn't matter how much education we have. It doesn't matter how much any of that we have at the end. And again, I just got over a long time ago because my bloodline runs through three different colors. So I got over a long time ago of trying to identify with anything except me being me.
Exactly. That's your identity.
A loving human being. And that's what I want to do. So I'm not doing the rest of the other part.
Exactly. There shouldn't have to be a reason to divide yourself from others and say, I'm this, I'm that. No, you're this. And it shouldn't have to be an argument. Because we're all one. We're all part of the race.
How do you get rid of your family members that come by way of blood? And I've got red, white, and black. I love them all. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting rid of all of them. But, it's interesting. What I defend the most is what I stand proudest the most. Is because it seemed to be something about my melanin that just seemed to rub people the wrong way. And I was determined to find out what that was because that wasn't what I was putting out. So what was it if it weren't my actions? That's where it interesting enough, melanin should not be the issue in our humanity. Our sustainability as a people, how are we going to feed each other? How are we going to sustainably, work out our economics so that people aren't. I mean, we right now with this thing, we've got more people unemployed than at any other time, even more than the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. We've got a mental illness that has been seeking in the background, just festering over all this time that nobody, has talked about. You've got so many other things that, in my opinion, deserve that attention. That melanin that you get at birth shouldn't even be the conversation.
Exactly. And it's saddening that it has to be. Yeah. I'm glad to voice it. I'm glad to talk about it. But the why I have to is unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I am really glad that you found your voice to be able to do that. I consider you like I consider Queen M, you're one of our great bridges. And what I mean by that is it's just like the new movie that's coming about Billie Holiday. And how that song, that one song, literally got the attention of the federal government to the point where they just didn't want her to sing that song because of what the words said. Mm-hmm. But the description was accurate. It's interesting how, the people who have been oppressed can't even talk about the oppression.
No,
it's like getting a spanking and told not to cry. It hurts.
It's not something you can just stay silent about, right? But that's a complete accurate example, right? Like, you kill me, Bam. Oh, the laughter's contagious. But you're absolutely right. It's, like I said, it's not something you can be silenced about. And my ancestors were silenced. I'm sure yours were. And generations even up until now have been silenced. So it's the now we have to start with, right? 2021, 2020, we're starting. It's not good enough to just be a visionary anymore.
No, it's a very interesting time now. And again, fortunately, I've lived long enough to feel that same energy that I felt when I was going through it back then. And it was like, it was moving. And I was young enough that I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do certain things. Mm-hmm. And moving forward with that agenda, like you're doing, that's what I did. Just, we're gonna cross that goalpost. Mm-hmm. And I thank you, so much for being the callus and being really that bright light. I mean, if it's always dark, then there's nowhere to go. But if there's a light, then there's at least hope, which is what you do. And having real conversations and being in a position to bridge that gap. It's interesting with melanin because if they don't see it, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And the good thing about our melanin is that it can take all shapes and all forms.
Exactly.
And the conversations, it will be had. They may not want to have it with me, but they'll have it with you.
Oh, they will. I'll make sure of it, Bam. I'll take care of it. Whether it's you or me, it's going to happen. But you flatter me, and thank you for being here today. You are such an inspiration and such a role model, so I am flattered to have you here. And I'm so happy and excited to see how this podcast turns out. For anybody watching, if you don't know where to get the rest of the information or want to reach out to Bam, you can go to www.inyourskinpodcast.com where you can see previous episodes and find other cool stuff about other projects I've taken part in and anything Bam has to say. And yes, Bam, would you have anything to add?
I absolutely do. Everybody out there, please keep your hope alive, keep your happy alive. Turn off the news, and you know what? We're going to get through this, and things are going to be fine.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Bam. You are such a beautiful human, and I'm so, like I said, so happy to have you here today. This was In Your Skin, episode 2 with Bam Lam, Bam528. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.